Welcome to Breaking the Chain. I'm Jacob.
And I'm Cody.
Before we get started, we just want to say thank you for all the support for the last episode. It's
Yeah.
crazy how many people came and supported, or even like locals just said they loved it and all that.
Yeah, we expected like our parents and that's it to watch our podcast. So it was really nice getting a lot of support. And it was really rewarding to see that and really energized us to do this second episode that we're now here for. So yeah, thank you all very much. That was overwhelming. Yeah. With that being said, do you want to talk about the RTN results for this past week? Actually,
Jump right.
before then, let's just say, what did we do in Flesh and Blood this week? I forgot we should probably talk about that first.
Oh yeah. So this week I jumped in and I went to an RTN and I went to a locals. Didn't do too well at my RTN, which whatever. We can go a little bit more into detail when we go into like just the RTN metagame results. But even then, it was just a lot of fun. A lot of good people, like I said. Like everyone there was super supportive, even of the podcast. But
that's sick, yeah. Yeah, and I also went to an RTN. We'll talk about that later. And also did the same locals as Jacob. And yeah, I don't know if that's the one you were talking about or if you were talking about at your RTN, but there was a lot of support at our locals too. I heard a lot of people say, congratulating us for the podcast and saying they really liked it and whatnot. So that was also really cool.
It was really cool.
But yeah, actually, I do want to say on that note of the armory that we went to, I put out I don't know if it's called a tweet or what you call it for Blue Sky, of a recreation of a fun moment I had at my armory. I think it's the hardest I've laughed in a Flesh and Blood game ever. But I was playing Dash.io and played against a Zen player, and they double transcend. And I look at the top of my deck, and I just start laughing. I say, hold on. I start laughing. And then he already knows what's happening. So I play Null Time Zone as an instant. And for the rest of the game, he's stuck with 2 chi. He ends up arsenaling one of them just so he can have a third card in his hand. And so he's stuck with 2 chi like the rest of the game. I thought that was a really funny moment that I had at my armory.
Yeah, it definitely it was in the middle of the night when I was working. I saw your tweet on Blue Sky or whatever it is. And it reminded me of that moment because I was sitting right next to you when that happened.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of the moment, and I cracked up at work or on my break. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, because we've all seen how powerful Null Time Zone is against Zen. And that's just when you play it out before they transcend. But this was in response to them double transcending. They can't pitch it. They can't play it. They can't activate their Zen ability. So they literally have 2 cards in their hand they can't do anything with. And so you're forcing them to Arsenal 1 just so that they can have a third card and aren't drawing just 2 cards every turn. And then now their Arsenal's dead for the rest of the game, even if your Null Time Zone goes away. But it is funny that I almost lost that game despite that because I almost fatigued. But it was fine. I ended up getting there in the end. But yeah, funniest moment in Flesh and Blood so far was that moment this week. Yeah, anyways, I didn't want to derail too much, but that was our Flesh and Blood week, and then we can talk about the RTN results. Do you have the results pulled up, Jacob?
I do have them up.
Yeah. Tell us the surprising news, if any.
So for performing heroes, I wouldn't say anything's too surprising. I think everyone saw that Viscera I knew were gonna be the top 2 decks. At least that's kind of what I assumed. But Aurora being the 3rd performing deck is a little surprising to me. Even at the RTN I went to, I don't actually remember seeing that many Auroras. And speaking of which, I could probably pull up on Discord itself.
At the RTN, yeah, because it was pretty varied there, if I remember correctly. It had, I think the highest represented hero, there's 40 something players, 44 players. I think the highest represented hero had 4 players. Yeah, I once you pull it up, I'd be curious to hear what the top heroes were. But I remember hearing there was a Betsy there. Unfortunately, it sounds like they didn't make top 8, but there was a Betsy there.
Yeah, we had 5 Syndra.
Oh, 5 Syndra. That's right.
Yeah, but it was... Where is. We had only one Aurora show up to the event in general.
Just one. Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. That's actually impressive. Yeah. I will say out of this, because I have this chart pulled up too, I was under the impression that Zen would be one of the top performers. And if you look at this chart, Zen is not anywhere near the top. He's just a small sliver near the bottom, actually, which that was surprising to me. I thought that he was still one of the best decks, but he did not perform as well as Viserai, Nu, Aurora, and Syndra. And like I knew those heroes would be up there, but I thought it would be Zen dominated first, then followed by maybe Viserai and so on and so forth. So that was definitely surprising for me.
I'm more surprised.
Go ahead.
Right. I was gonna say I'm more surprised by the heroes that didn't perform.
Yeah.
Because like, I think this is a pretty even spread. But even like going down to it, like you said, Zen, I was expecting a little more from. Personally, I kind of thought that like Vincent might get a couple more wins, but I mean, getting 2 is probably best Vincent's gotten in a while.
Yeah.
I'm surprised Fang only got 1 win with how like much I heard people talking about it, and like Mara, I like saw her post something about making an all red list and people talking about it was scary. So I was a little surprised. I didn't expect a lot from Zen, but I was surprised there was only 1. And then personally, I'm very sad to see that there was 0 wins for Jarl.
0 wins for Jarl. That is actually surprising.
In the RTN.
I thought Jarl would get at least one win. But
what I think he struggles with is he's not good into Viserai. He's not good into Nu. Like he's not good into Nu. He's okay into Aurora. He's good into Syndra, but it's just like the 2 top decks.
Yeah, and then if you consider Zen one of the top decks too, then he's not good into Zen either. So that does mean that he's not the most well positioned. That's for sure. So it makes some sense that he doesn't pick up any wins here. But I still thought that when it comes to these local events, anything can win these things, right? Like you can bring lower tier heroes and expect to do pretty well at these things, right? Because you're as we said in the last podcast, being a specialist in something is worth a lot in these types of events. So I'm just surprised, especially with Hamilton bringing a pretty good list to Memphis and performing fairly well with it. I was surprised not to see any Jarls here.
I'm actually kind of surprised because he ended up winning a Battle Harden over the weekend, but not a single RTN.
Did he? I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, he won the Battle Harden in, I forget exactly where. I think it was like
and this was
Barcelona. Yeah.
Wow.
Because there was, I think, 2 Battle Hardens and a calling this weekend.
Yeah, because there was Barcelona and there was where was it? Christchurch. Yeah.
Yeah, so he won the Battle Harden Barcelona over a Verdance, who got second place, and it was Arthur Trehay on Verdance.
Wow, yeah. Okay, I do remember that now. Yeah, so yeah, Jarl also won a Battle Hardened, and yeah, he still didn't pick up any wins at the Road to Nationals, so I mean, it makes sense when you consider the spread, and it's just Michael Hamilton, so he can win with any hero, right? But yeah, I was still a little surprised by that. I will also say that I was surprised by how few Syndras won. I mean, obviously Syndra's near the top there, but she does seem like a very strong deck, and I believe she won the RTN that you went to, correct? I think it was Dylan on Syndra, if I remember correctly. And so I thought that she'd be further up than Aurora and even Nu, because I believe she has a favorable Nu matchup. Potentially not a great Viserai matchup, but I would think that she'd be above Aurora. But yeah, I was just surprised to see her that low. Arachne is about exactly where I expected him to be, about 5th in number of wins. And then, sorry, I guess it's them, right? Because it's the whole brood. But I was just looking at the picture of Arachne. But yeah, so fifth there, and then Prism right below Arachne. Prism got, how many wins is that? 7. That's a pretty good number of Prism wins.
I was actually not surprised to see like Prism doing so well, and I know there was quite a few. I think 4 Prisms that showed up, which was like the second most represented hero at our RTN locally.
Yeah, there was it was 4 of them, right?
Yeah, so it was Syndra was our most represented at 5, but then Zen and Prism were tied for second at 4.
Wow, yeah.
So like,
it's a lot of
and
Prisms.
like going into the weekend, you like see all the aggro decks, and it like kind of makes sense because a lot of people are removing poppers too.
Yeah.
So you have like Syndra, Aurora, like Viscerai, like not all that. Like Viscerai has a couple poppers, but even then, like you can just kind of do Herald spam, and it's kind of hard to respond at some points where she can just like Herald you, and still have maybe a blocking card here and there.
I will say Viscerai is one of Prism's worst matchups. So that is a tough one for her. But yeah, she's pretty good into the rest of the field, I would say. Maybe not Aurora, but she's actually pretty good into Syndra because, like you said, there's not a lot of poppers. Syndra doesn't defend that well. She does have a decent amount of armor, but it's on Blade Break equipment. And so using that armor to stop these Heraldon hits is pretty costly. And we saw that, I think it was in Memphis, we saw that matchup. And just about how it goes it felt like that was about how it should go almost every time. And yeah, so Prism's definitely been doing well. We'll see how the meta adapts to Prism having the sixth most RTN wins, and maybe some more 7 power poppers getting thrown in lists to accommodate that. But yeah, no, this is a cool surprise to see for this RTN breakdown. Yeah, do you have anything else you want to say on that, on the RTN results?
Nothing too crazy. I think I think generally everything makes sense. It's just a few heroes that like stick out to me. And I'm like, okay, surprised by Zen, surprised by a few other heroes, but yeah.
Okay, well then, how about we dive into the dev talk?
Yeah, I love these dev talks. By the way, I just want to like break away and say like it's super cool that they like reach out and like talk to us, or like are willing to tell us kind of their inner thoughts on a lot of ways and manners. The dev talk this time it felt, I guess they're always like a bit serious because they're always talking about like the more like modern stuff, but they kind of started off with like the mistrigger policy, and James White even like breaks off to a story about how when he was in Magic, he was responsible for his like opponent's mistriggers, and how it led him to have like a bad scenario where he got penalized, and I think he even said like a game loss because he missed his opponent's trigger in Magic at one point, and how like he doesn't think that's a good policy for Flesh and Blood, and I completely agree. Like I can't imagine being in like a hyper competitive setting and you're trying to like even like ProQuest level, like when you're up at that level, like I understand the idea of like you're not gonna work on your opponent's triggers. You're trying to reach this state of like being the better player. But it was like a real interesting listen. But it kind of like leads into, and I know it was brought up because of the whole situation with like Brody, which I don't think we're gonna go too much in detail on this, like with the whole Brody situation. It's been a while. A lot of people have already come out and talked about it. And I personally think if you want to go and see like a like good explanation, I really agree with how like the Runaways podcast went and explained the whole situation and how they tackled it. They talked about how.
Yeah, I was gonna say, could you give like a short summary of their thoughts on the incident?
So like a little short summary is that they don't quite agree with how like Brody handled it. They call it, or like make it like a similar comparison to like icing, where it's like when he takes so long to make a decision, you're telling yourself over and over and over again that like, oh, I've got to make sure I make that trigger. I got to make sure I make that trigger. And that's the only thing you're thinking for minutes on end. And like when you have to, like, I say minutes, but like say you do that for like a minute straight, your mind's going to wander. And it's not like you're thinking about future plays you can make. You've already have your decided play. So it's like kind of icing that player where it's like finally when everything's said and done, all the blocks are done, like you might have lost your luck track. Or like your thought process, and you're like, okay, let's just clean this up, get to the next turn. Then you pull up your next hand, and then it's already too late to be like, oh shoot, I totally forgot. Like, like I totally missed my trigger there because you were just like, because it took so long. And that was kind of like their prospect of like, And like I get the idea of like, oh, it's a missed trigger if they miss it immediately, but like going and waiting for a trigger to happen and thinking about the process of blocking is like similar to like icing a kicker in football in a way, which is different in a card game than it is in football.
Okay, I was wondering what the reference there that I was missing the context for. So icing is a football term for game.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
You're good.
So
Most people probably don't know what that means, but I don't watch a lot of sports, so I have no clue. I've heard it once or twice before, but yeah, could you explain what icing means in the context of football?
Yeah. So in like the context of football is like whenever a kicker is like going to make like a game-winning field goal, they have to like get up and kick the ball, obviously. But one thing that teams like to do is as they're going up to kick the ball, they're getting ready to call the play, and right before they hike the ball, the opposing team will call like a timeout.
Okay.
And they do that to try and get more in the like kicker's head. So like give them more time to think about how they're gonna mess up this play.
I see. Okay.
So it's like, okay, they go onto the field to do this, and then you call a timeout. You have to sit down for 30 seconds and think even harder about this play that you're about to make. And that's kind of like the comparison to like icing is like
right
when you make this play like CNC pummel, you sit and you wait and you let your opponent think about this and like kind of stumble and give them the opportunity to make this mistake.
So I guess like a summary of their stance is that they think that the ruling and the way that they're treating the triggers is good, but that they just need to make sure that the time that the what's the right word for it, the like tanking, going in the tank, is reduced to prevent those missed triggers from the opponent.
Right. And like another thing they brought up is that they feel that the judge jumped in during the like trigger phase of it, because that's when they gave him a warning for slow play. Because like
so
the whole thing happened, the CNC, so there's a lot of different factors. I think they go through it for like an hour. I think if you want like a really good opinion that I agree a lot with, go listen to them, and they can tell you a lot more on the whole Brody situation.
Yeah.
But speaking of which, though, I do agree with the mistrigger policy. I think is a good policy, and the way they explain it, especially on the dev talk, I think is like it all makes sense. Like nothing super crazy to me.
Yeah, it just kind of seems like it's the best solution to it is to not force the triggers to be a responsibility of the opponent as well, because like the example that James White gave, it's not great for you to be punished for your opponent's cards, right? In your opponent's actions. So that makes some sense to me.
Something they forgot.
So I get that. It does. It's unfortunate that there's not a better solution where it seems like it's still within the rules for players to try to angle that way to I guess force their opponent to declare the trigger, even though it's something that should happen regardless. But if it is the best solution, then it's the best solution, right? So
yeah. And it's what they call like lesser of two evils. Like,
right. I was actually looking for that phrase. Both. That's what I was trying to find that phrase, but I couldn't think of it. So thank you. Okay. Then something else they talked about in the dev talk was accumulating fractions, and that was in specific relation to Brody as well, right? Where he was getting a lot of warnings for slow play, but they would reset every event, I think is what I heard, instead of accumulating over events. Is that
and I think
correctly?
Yeah, the way they describe it, and it's like I don't think this was in a direct reference to like Brody either. I think this was just situationally like something, and I'm sure this was brought up because of that whole situation. But they were talking about how like infractions shouldn't be something like a refreshing thing like every tournament you go to. You're like, well, I can do this like penalty this many times before like it's actually something serious I have to think about. And then all of a sudden it opens up the opportunity for some like unfair kind of play. And not that it's against the rules at the moment, but it's like it opens up to like, okay, well, like I can just choose to sit down and do nothing like 2 times in the tournament, get like 2 warnings, and then I have to play seriously if I'm looking for like this edge or this advantage.
Okay. Yeah, I think
so. It's something that they. Yeah, and it's not that they can do it now, but they're saying like they need to update Gem first put in a couple like things to make it like easy, because it would be really hard just to like have a list somewhere and you have to look through it every time. But they were talking about like doing some updates and trying this system out, which I think is like an interesting system, and it makes sense because it's something you don't want people being like, oh, I have this many penalties I can make before I get a game loss or this infraction here. But I just thought it was something like interesting to kind of bring up.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was interesting too that they made that change as well. So then what's the next thing they talked about in the dev talk?
The next thing they talked about was the change in future bans before sets. And I know this was something that came up a lot with the Zephyr Needle ban, because I know a lot of people were kind of miffed that they let Zephyr Needles like go out even for like a few days, just for people to buy the Zephyr Needles, invest in this deck, try and figure out, get practice into it, and then ban it. Because it was only out like,
it was never actually legal to play, right?
No, it was never legal, but it's just the community's gotten so, and they mentioned this, like the community's gotten so smart, they're so quick to figure things out, that like the card was released, the pick Sticks and Run, I forget the name, it's some Sticks and Run.
Yeah,
Up Sticks and Run. Thank you. Like it was released, and it was like the next day, the entire community's like, this Ira deck's insane. This Ira deck, da 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 da.
It was the open secret, right?
Yeah, it's like I don't even think that the entire set was spoiled at that point, and people were already talking about how broken this Ira deck is. And it was just a situation of them mentioning like the community's just gotten to the point where they're like so incredibly like fast at figuring things out that they're gonna try and not leave. They're gonna be a lot better about not leaving these like Easter egg crazy broken decks.
Right. Because from what I saw, they knew that it was broken months. What was it, like May or June of last year?
I think it was like August.
Yeah, but regardless, it was multiple months ahead of time. They knew that it was going to be a problem, but they wanted to be similar to the Dash.io situation, right? Where they knew that Dash.io was going to be too strong with high octane and Cerebellum processor, but they wanted to allow it to be available for an event and for it to be a fun discovery for people. And whether or not you agree with it being a fun discovery is probably whether or not you want to play the deck. But I think that it's not a terrible idea for, if it's just a small percentage of the field, for that very strong deck to be there, for people to be rewarded for discovering things like that. But like you mentioned, they said that people are finding these things too quickly now, and it's starting to require these preemptive bans instead of these more, let's let this powerful thing run its course for a little bit, let people have their fun, and ban it after the fact. So that is an interesting change that they're making now that the community has gotten a little bit more pre-release solving, I guess maybe is one way you could put it, where they're solving the meta before the cards are even in people's hands. So that is an interesting change that they're making, which leads into our next topic, which is the High Seas release in Nationals, because that's coming out. That set comes out the same day as Nationals, I believe.
Oh yeah, they did go in a lot of detail about that, and they changed some policies, and this is like a big thing that a lot of people are like worried about, and I'm still a little anxious to see how this is. But the idea was that you're now allowed to sell your like extra product on the pre-release date. So
that change already happened, right?
Yeah, it happened for Hunted, but it was something where like I know in the Hunted, like some stores don't have like a box of extra product, and then you'd have to split it among how many extra people. And it was something where they said that in the beginning of the Hunted there were some allocation problems where things weren't shipped fully and all that, and it's something that they don't foresee happening with High Seas. And they're actually like, they talked about how they're trying to get extra product to the USA because it's on release date.
Right.
So they're trying to make sure there's a like huge circulation of product the week before the Nationals event.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So they're trying to make it, I guess, pseudo available prior to the street date.
Yeah, in a way,
allowing stores to have more product on hand and then sell that product during the pre-release.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've picked up from the situation. Is they're trying to give all this extra product like especially from what I can tell, the USA, because they have the like, well, here's the set release, and on the same day, like, here's a national level tournament, and they're like, it's like a privilege to buy, like, or they say it's kind of like a privilege and a cool thing in a way to be like able to play and solve this meta for the first time, and like show it on a world stage, which is like kind of cool in a way. I'm just worried it's gonna be like a similar thing to the Memphis, where it's like it opens up and like you hear stories of people like not even being able to find shelter for the storms, but like
Yeah.
having, like, if you want them, having to buy them for upwards of $100, if not over $100 for what is right now like a $70 card.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up because I will say I think that it's overall a good decision to have a set release right before a major event, because not only is it like a really fun event to watch and to see how the players will take this brand new meta and utilize the new cards to potentially win the tournament, but I think it's like it's good from that standpoint, and I think also it's not even like I think it's also good from the competitive standpoint, because if you have the dedication and the time that you can put into testing out these new decks and these new heroes, and you really put all your energy into testing for that new meta, then you'll get rewarded for it, right? And obviously not everyone can put all that time into it, and they can still play a deck that they're comfortable with and get just the reps into the new decks that they need. But I think that it's rewarding as a competitor to play in a very fresh meta and try to gain that edge over the people of testing things before they're even out, before you can even play with the cards. So I think it'll be fun for both viewers and competitors. That's my take anyway. But
yeah, I just wish that.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just wish that they gave us like a couple weeks.
Yeah.
Just to like get the product, even if it's another week.
So that's what I was gonna say, is that the product acquisition is the number one issue with that, right? I think that as long as they are truthful to what they're trying to say, where there's gonna be plenty of product available, you'll be able to get it in time. There won't be a Shelter of the Storm incident happening or a Hunter's Clave incident happening, then I think it'll be fine. But we'll have to see. We'll have to wait and see, because if there is a necessary generic card that everyone wants, like Shelter of the Storm, then we're going to have that problem where people are going to make their deck list, they're going to build their deck with that card in mind, and then just not be able to actually get it for the tournament. Because you'll just submit your deck list, I think, a day or two beforehand, and then maybe you can buy the product on Thursday, maybe, before Nationals, but then Friday morning, you have to have your deck. You have to be there probably 9 or 10 a.m. in your seat with your deck sleeved up and ready and play your first round. And I unless they're allowing people to buy product the day before from vendors, I don't see that being feasible for a lot of people.
Right.
So we'll see how it turns out. I'm optimistic, but I am a little worried that there could be some issues with playing the deck that I want to play at a competitive event.
Yeah. Hopefully it like turns out well. One little thing that like they mentioned on the dev talk that you talked about was like Hunter's Clave. They talked about how like everyone's talking about how Hunter's Clave is short printed. And they actually brought up that it was printed correctly and actually has the right amount of printings. It's actually printed at the same level as other like majestic one-handed weapons.
So I thought I heard a little bit about that. So I heard people joking about Orbitoclast when it came to that, which is probably what they were referencing there, right? They're referencing these other majestic dagger weapons that were in, I believe, Dusk Till Dawn, and what's the other set that has like a
Dynasty?
Dynasty, yes. I believe that's what they're referencing there, right? And people came back jokingly like, oh, but I didn't need to run 2 Orbitoclasts, which is a fair argument because there are a lot of decks currently that run 2 Hunter's Claves. But I have heard a lot of discussion about not running 2 Hunter's Claves, which would therefore make the printing amount potentially correct, right? Where if you are only running 1 and everyone currently is buying 2, that's having the supply compared to the demand. And so maybe even if we have the price right now of what, it's like $75 or something for Hunter's Clave.
I think it's dropped quite a bit.
Oh,
I'm
has
not
it?
entirely sure. I can.
So,
I'd say quite a bit. It's still like $45 to my knowledge, which is still crazy.
but like, let's say it was even if it was 50 or $60 right now, having a 20 to $30 one of weapon is not that unreasonable, right? And if everyone's buying two of these things when they should only be really buying one, then that's artificially making it scarce, right? So I understand their point on that. It's just whether or not running only one of them is actually the correct move, and that will be, well, time will tell whenever we see these deck lists get perfected.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It's just unfortunate that, like, jumping right into this set, and it's, I think another thing is a lot of new people are jumping into this set. And like, I think Arachne looks super cool, especially if you're a new player. Like, imagine it's your first set and you're like first sealed event. You sit down like, oh, I'm gonna try Flesh and Blood out, and you play it, and you're like, this Arachne hero is awesome.
Yeah.
I can see myself being a new player and being like, I love just at the start of my turn, or like at the end of a turn, because they're marked. I roll my dice. I'm a new hero. Like,
right, you play sealed, you get to play this hero, and then you want to keep playing it, right? Like, yeah.
So it's like, I get the idea of it being like expensive because there's so many people wanting to jump into it. At the same time, like, this is like really expensive. Like, at the same time, it's like, imagine being a new player and you're like, wow, like, I really want to invest in this hero. This is super cool. How much does it cost? Like, oh, the weapons themselves cost. And I pulled it up. They're at $45 right now.
Okay. I mean, that's better. But yeah, no, I heard a lot of discussion about how Brian Lawrence's deck, which is, I think, the current standard for a Mario deck, as they call it, was $1,300 to buy from scratch. Which is a little expensive, I have to say. I think it's gone down a little bit, right? A lot of the Majestics have gone down, and CNC has notably gone down a bit because of the new printing. And Hunter's Clave has gone down since that statement, but it's probably still around the $1,000 mark for this brand new deck that a lot of people want to play. And that is one of the barriers to entry of the game, is when you initially build your first Flesh and Blood deck and you don't have some of these staples like Final Spring Tunic and Command and Conquer and I guess Codex of Frailty, you know, some of these cards that are very flexible amongst other decks, and once you buy them, they're a good investment. But when you're first getting into the game, it's a huge hurdle to get them across. And having that on a brand new hero that these pre-release events are catering to these newer players, it's not a great look for these players to continue playing the game. And so that is a concern when it comes to the prices to play these decks.
Yeah, and one thing like to say about that is, like, these weapons are more like, they're not required, like they have different daggers, but if you want to play this hero, like, this is the best way to approach this. Like, these are the best daggers. And it's like, you don't need your CNCs. When I like first played this game for like the first year and a half, I had like one CNC that I pulled from Arcane Rising pack, and that was like fine. You don't need a lot of these like super high power cards. You can slowly collect them over time, and that's kind of like what I did, like jumping into the game. Like, CNCs were like 100 and like 20, maybe $130 when I first started. And I was just like, I'm not gonna get these CNCs. Like, I'm just gonna sit back. Like, I don't need them that much. And it was like slowly over time, like, I accumulated them over like, oh, like, I'm going to a competitive event, or like, oh, I'm gonna go participate in this calling level event. Like, maybe I'll invest in a CNC. Like, I haven't actually gotten product recently, or like saved up the money to do it. So it's like slowly invested in these bigger decks. But I was playing with like Anathos, which is a weapon that is like 30 cents. Like, it was something where like the base of the deck was really cheap. Like, oh, like all the like base guardian stuff, like a few of the Majestics were like a couple dollars each. Like, a lot of the other stuff was really cheap, so it's like I could get a base level deck, but it's like hard to be like, okay, I want to jump into this game, and then before you even get to the like main deck portion, you're only at like equipment, even if you're going with just common equipment. Like, you go to the daggers and you're like, Oh man, I haven't gotten to the deck, and my deck's already up to like $100. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, that is one thing that I remember when I soon after I started the game, that was a comment that was thrown around a lot was, oh, you just play budget decks for these with these cards, that your deck isn't all that much worse if you're running these budget cards. And a lot of times that was not really accurate. Your deck was a lot worse without the cards. There's definitely some cases, and I think that's one thing about Shelter of the Storm where I think it is fine that it's a Majestic, because it is just a very minor upgrade over some of the other 4-block defense reacts that we have in the game. It is like, some people still consider running Fate Foreseen and Sink Below over it in some situations, right? So it's a very marginal upgrade that is not necessary at the at any kind of local level. But obviously, when you want to play at these larger events, you know, it's best to have the best equipment available. But I think those marginal upgrades are the sweet spot of having things be expensive. But when it comes to like Hunter's Clave, like you said, when you're playing Mario, you kind of need to have at least one of those cards. You can't really run. You can run the budget option, but it's not nearly as good. And that's where I think saying that there's budget options is a little bit of a cop out and not a really accurate statement. But
yeah, and it was more of them just saying that it's like regularly printed and it's like fine, and it might just be like Hunted. Like, I know a lot, like in the beginning, people were like struggling to find Hunted.
Apparently, it's still struggling.
Yeah, and it could just be that Hunted, like, not nearly enough product has been opened up, and like one more product gets out there, the price is gonna drop a lot. Like, it's already dropped $30 from like its ceiling.
Yeah, it was so interesting because it was paired with not only Memphis, like you said, people had to pay a lot premium for cards for that event, but there's also the RTN season that it was going up right up against. And I think in the past, these new sets have had about a 2-week buffer before the local qualifier events like RTNs and ProQuests. But this time it was, I think it was a week before the release. It was a week before the first week of RTNs. And so it was a lot less time for people to get their cards, and they had to pay these premium prices for it. And so it was a little bit exacerbated in that sense.
I guess time will tell if this is something that's just like the distribution like caused a majority of like this fluff to the price.
Yeah, I think that ultimately, as is with LSS, they always come to the right decisions in the end. They improve the game over time, and I don't doubt that they'll fix this acquisition issue. But it was definitely very felt for this latest set for the Hunted. But yeah, that's why I'm optimistic, but cautiously optimistic about High Seas. But not to complain anymore about High Seas. What are your thoughts on the new set, the new theme?
So, it's exciting. It's like, I personally am not like a huge like pirate fan. But like, I like pirates. They're cool, whatever. But it's like super cool because so many people are getting so excited for it. Like,
yeah, I have to counter that. I think that the pirate theme is phenomenal. I think that's like the coolest theme that we've had so far. Like, I'm in the opposite camp. I saw the artwork and I was just instantly in love with the set. Like, I've literally seen 0 cards and have heard very minimal things, but I'm already really looking forward to this set. I think the theme is amazing. So I thought it was funny that we have different opinions there.
Right. Well, and it's like, I like the theme, and like I said, pirates are cool. It's just something where it's like, it's not like my big thing. Like, I love the Tales of Aria theme. Like, that's like, whenever I see like that art, that's always like, ooh, this is getting exciting. But it's like super cool because even like my girlfriend Beth, who I've like gotten in the game casually, like, I showed her like the thing and like, oh, High Seas, and then she's like talking about how this is probably gonna be like her first set she like really buys into the game and like starts playing.
It's funny
like,
you say that.
Like, not starts playing, but
yeah, it's funny you say that because that was one of my big thoughts when I first saw it, was that this is going to be a widely appealing theme, and it's going to be really appealing to new players. I think we've already seen a good jump in the player base lately. We've had like a bit of a lull in the Denver area, but like, we had 44 people at your RTN, your CCRTN, which is a lot more than we've been getting lately at these events. And I think High Seas is a very popular theme that's going to be an even bigger boost to the player base of the game. So that was another thing I was looking forward to when I saw that, the artwork and the title for the set and the introduction of, as they say, pirates. Potentially pirate hero, potentially just pirates in the art. I guess we'll find out. But I'm hoping for a new class or talent of pirate. I think that'd be really fun.
It would definitely be interesting. There's like so much you can like speculate about this entire pirate thing. Because like, is it finally the gold playoff for like Olympia? Like,
yeah. I was thinking there's like a lot of different potential upgrades that they're going to come with. As like Olympia's been in like you said, Olympia's been in the in the shadows. Kind of doesn't really have a payoff. You know, gold's the payoff, as they say. But what do pirates like? They like treasure. What is treasure? Gold. So maybe they're gonna have a gold payoff in this set. That's a theory that I had. I thought that was a fun little thought there. Maybe silver as well. Some more silver payoffs for the assassins could be in the set.
that'd be cool.
I think that'd be a cool way, because I feel like Contract Arachne has kind of been left in the dust a bit. But if you had a better silver payoff, maybe it could actually come back. So there's a lot of potential expansion slot cards they could throw in there that have these gold and silver payoffs, or just these generic cards they can throw in the set that are the same role, that could really buff up some of these old heroes. And there's been a lot of speculation on there being a ranger in this set. Do you think there'll be a ranger?
There has to be a ranger.
There has to be a ranger.
He's literally a pirate. Like, there has to be a ranger.
Are you referencing the trench, the chest?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Well, like that, and like Riptide, I'm pretty sure, and like maybe he's not literally a pirate, but I'm pretty sure in his lore, like he did something with pirates for a while.
Yeah, I
don't know his lore too well, but
him at least being pirate adjacent, if you will.
Yes.
Yeah. So and he just got a new card recently in the Hunted. Is it Lalo? No, Lalo's the D react. What is it called?
No, that's
Chain reaction.
Generic. Yeah, chain reaction.
Chain reaction. Yeah. So he just got a new card. And he might even be getting a lot more new stuff if we're having a ranger or some pirate themed support. I had a theory yesterday that, and I double checked dual threat, and there wasn't anybody with a gun in one hand and a sword in the other hand. But I really want, if they make a pirate, I really want it to be a dual one-handed hero that has a sword in one hand and a blunderbuss or whatever it's called in the other hand.
That would be so cool.
I think that'd be sick. We'll see. I think that'd be really fun to have like the modality of being able to choose which weapon you fire every turn.
Well, and that's like, I was talking to some people, and I can't remember if it was at the locals or the RTN, but they were like, we were talking about like, there's got to be like mechanologists in the set too. Like,
I saw that. Yeah, we might get a mechanologist pirate.
That would be sick, because they're like the class with guns and like little pistols, like that. Like, that's very pirate theme. Like, you're gonna jump over onto someone else's boat, like flash some swords, pull your pistol out. You know what I mean?
Yep. Exactly. I also saw that there's people hoping for the fish man that's in one of the card arts in the Hunted.
Oh yeah, for Nip at the Heels.
Yeah, for Nip at the Heels, exactly. He has like it's like an armored crab looking humanoid, and that would be a really cool hero to have too. If you just had some claws, like a brute style hero, maybe. I thought that was a cool thought.
Finally give them the blue 6 that they need.
I doubt it. I really doubt it. They've gone so far to do anything except a blue 6. They gave them a yellow 6 that blocks 6. That's how much they didn't want to give another blue 6. I don't think it's happening so anytime soon.
Like, I think definitely in the past of Flesh and Blood, like a blue 6 was really strong and like way too much. But it's like the more like we get in Flesh and Blood, like with like Take Up the Mantle being in like Assassins now. I had someone throw like just a generic one, like blue 1 stealth at me the other day, and this was at the RTN. I was playing a Mario. I'm like, okay, it's a 1 stealth. Like, I'm not gonna block this.
Right.
They're like, oh, Take Up the Mantle, just a nick, da 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 da. And they're like, okay, it's Bonds of Agony for 16. Do you have any responses? And I'm like,
yeah.
Nope. Here's my hand.
Are you saying you weren't running Bunker Beard with 10 foot tall and bulletproof in your arsenal to play around that? Come on.
I never thought of that. That's actually a funny combo.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you have like these crazy combos in the game now. You're like, oh, like I'm gonna change my card and do this, and like Codex of Frailty, like take your arsenal and then throw 4 at you, or even like you look at something like the Guardian things I do, like Ulkin will dominate because I have 4 single fuse cards in my deck now. Like, there's so many crazy things. I'm like, is it really that bad to give them like a 6 blue at this point?
Yeah,
like they don't even care if it blocks at this point.
They might get one. Maybe they have been a little underrepresented lately. Actually, let me look back at the metagame. Did we see any brutes in there? A single one?
We did see, I think, like 2 KOs.
Oh, there is 2 KOs. Okay, so out of the, what is this, 80 events, we had two brutes win. So maybe it's time. Maybe it's finally time for the blue 6.
Yeah, and like I'm sure brute players wouldn't even care if like the blue 6 was like, oh, when this gets discarded, your attack gets -2 or something weird like this. Like
they would love that actually. That'd be worthwhile for them. Yeah.
Like it still triggers my stuff. I just lose a little value. Whatever. I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, no, it's just something I thought about recently. I'm like, there's so many like crazy things in this game. Is a blue 6 really that crazy for brutes to get?
Yeah, I've heard it is pretty crazy for them to get, but maybe at this point, maybe it's time. It might be time.
We'll see. I might be crazy. I'm not a developer. I've not put a blue 6 in the game and played with like Rhinar and KO with blue 6s.
That would be interesting to try out, but yeah, no, I'm excited. I think so. So it sounds like people are expecting a ranger because Trench is for a ranger. But I also kind of feel like we're getting a ranger because when is the last time we got a ranger? What is the last ranger?
2
Riptide?
years ago and outside. Yeah, Riptide.
So that's a long time without a new ranger. And we have one that's about to LL in the form of Azalea, which is impressive because I guess, has there been any hero from Arcane Rising that's LL'd? No, right? It's Viserai, Azalea, and Dash.
There's no non-talented heroes that have LL'd.
That's for the first case, yeah. But all 3 of those are near the edge, right? Because Viserai is at like 900 something now. Or Azalea's about 900, and Dash has been at what, 950 for a while.
Ever.
Yeah. And none of the Welcome Wraith heroes have LL'd yet. So what I'm trying to get at though is that we haven't had a new ranger in forever, but we have how many assassins now? So I expect a ranger for that reason. A new mechanologist would be kind of cool, even though we got Dash.io and Bright Lights like a year and a half ago, so not that long ago. And
cool to see them get like more support.
The mechanologists.
Yeah, I mean, like it felt like Bright Lights was like neutral in a lot of ways.
Yeah, we did get 3 new mechanologists in that set, and it was an entire mechanologist set, to be fair. So for that reason, I could see them not wanting to do any more mechanologist stuff for a while. But but I don't know. I do like the theory of mechanologists being a part of the set, and obviously I like Dash.io, so I wouldn't mind that at all. But I will say I'm curious to see if they are introducing pirates like as a class, as a hero in the first place, and 2, if they do introduce pirates as a class or as a hero. I'm saying that specifically because it could be either a class or a talent, right? They could say pirate brute, pirate warrior, stuff like that, or it could be a class in and of itself and have all brand new cards. But I'm kind of leaning towards it being a talent.
One thing I just thought of, like, what if it's not like a talent or a class, but it's like royal and it's like a tag? I don't know if that's what it's called.
Is that what it's called? Yeah, whatever royal is.
Though. I don't know what it is, but it's like
chaos.
It's not like.
And chaos is a talent.
Well, chaos is a talent,
but it's like chaos.
Yeah. But it's something where it's like, if you're a pirate hero, it's just like a generic card, like kind of like royal. But if you're a pirate hero, do these extra effects.
That's interesting. I didn't think about that part. They could do that, and I don't think that's a terrible idea either, because royal is effectively treated like chaos, and chaos, or I guess I should say chaos is effectively like royal, where you have a couple cards that mention it, but that's it. So they could continue to do that, where they have a pirate. I think it is technically a talent. I think chaos is definitely a talent, but I think royal might also be a talent. But regardless,
it probably is technically a talent.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, they could add pirate as like a pseudo talent, and it basically it lowers the ceiling of the hero as it not being a talented hero in the regular sense of things, right? Where you don't have like ice, earth, lightning as a talent.
Yeah.
Because you don't have this large pool of cards, but you still have a couple cards that are like pseudo specializations. Which actually, I did want to bring that up at some point. Maybe this isn't the right time, but I noticed that they kind of have been moving away from specializations, which could support that theory of it being like a pirate set and having those pseudo specializations.
It's so sad. I love specialization cards. I think they're so cool.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But I definitely have seen it in the last couple sets.
Yeah, they have a couple, right? Because like the Arachne helmet is technically an Arachne specialization, although it's multiple heroes can use it obviously because there's multiple Arachnes. But on all the legendary class cards, like the legendaries, and you can only run one of, they aren't specialized. Like Wrath of Retribution for Syndra, Fire and Brimstone for Fang, and what is the legendary for Assassin? I think there is one. Maybe there isn't one.
I don't think there is one.
There might not be one. But anyway,
are they really not specialized?
They're not specializations. They're just legendary. But what's interesting about that is that allows them to be reused in the future with different heroes, but with the same talents, right?
Huh.
So like,
yeah.
Like for example, like I think Lexi has some specializations that if they were to release another Ice, Lightning Ranger, then that new Ranger couldn't use those Lexi specializations, even though they might be a good play pattern for the new hero. So maybe that's why they're trying to move away from it. Anyway, I didn't want to derail too much, but I noticed that they were doing less specializations, and thought that tied into maybe the potential pirate like talent.
Okay. Yeah. Then I could see that. It's definitely weird because I noticed that Mistveil didn't have any specializations either. Because like the
did they were they not specializations? They might not be actually. Yeah.
I don't think they are.
Well, now I'm curious. Now I have to look it up. What's one of them? Is it Jade Tiger Domain?
Yes.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's not a specialization either. But yeah, so exactly. So it's another example of them making a card that you would normally think is a specialization, usually a legendary specialization, but it's not. Although they did just make, was it Ring of Roses for Verdance? That's a Verdance specialization. So I guess
yeah.
we have some evidence for both sides.
Weird.
But yeah. Anyway, something quirky that I noticed. But do you have any other theories for High Seas? We don't have a lot to work with, but we do have a couple arts and whatnot that we have seen.
One thing I was surprised with was how early they spoiled it, because I feel like they normally like spoil this set like next set like a month or like a month and a half after we've gotten like the set.
That's true.
So I feel like it was Rosetta, like we got like an entire like pro quest or something, and then it ended with an event, and then they spoiled it. So I was surprised because it's like 1 week in and they're like, now that you have hunted, look towards High Seas. I was just like, oh, okay, like not that it's a problem.
Yeah, I was literally at the
surprised.
first RTN of the season, and in the middle of the tournament, someone was like fist pumping in the air and screaming and being like, "It's High Seas has been confirmed. It's like we know it's a pirate set." And it was a surprise. I was like, "Wait, they confirmed the set already? Like we're at the first competitive event of the hunted meta." Well, sorry, not the first competitive weekend, because it's the second competitive weekend, rather, of the hunted meta. And they announced the new set. And I wonder if it's because of its timing with nationals, and they wanted to make sure that we knew like they were working towards that, and we weren't like weren't surprised by it like a month down the line, right? Because I've actually been talking to some people to try to like see, oh hey, what's your product availability look like when it comes to like ordering maybe some cases ahead of time, and they've gotten a lot of interest, and so having this extra time allows them to really work with distribution and try to get a lot of product ahead of time. So I think that's probably why they did it too.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, if you have nothing else to say about High Seas, then I can talk a little bit more about the RTN I play. Actually, we can both talk about the RTNs we played in detail if you wanted to talk about yours.
Yeah, well, let's jump into yours first. Yours was much Right, much more important than mine.
But yeah, so if any of you haven't heard yet, I won my RTN last Saturday. It was a draft RTN, and I won it on Fang. There were 25 players, I believe, and which meant that we had 2 pods of drafting in Swiss, followed by a top 8 draft. I was very excited to win it. I did not expect to win it. I was just going there for my top 4 placement for an invite, and then after that, I just did not care. I was like, as long as I get my nationals invite and I'm locked for nationals, I'm good. But I was really fortunate to take that one down. I drove all the way up to Wyoming for it. It was, I believe, a 2.5-hour drive. Not to mention, I picked somebody else up on the way that was a little bit out of the way. So I think it was about a 3-hour drive in that morning. And then a 2.5-hour drive back, basically. So drove a long ways to get there and play in it, but definitely worth it considering the result. I actually did a big tour of drafting. So the first pod, I drafted Arachne. The second pod, I drafted Syndra. And then the top 8 pod, I drafted Fang. So I did one draft of each hero, which was not my intention. In fact, I felt way more comfortable on Arachne than the other heroes, which is why my first pod, I basically just fell into an Arachne pod. And the second and third pods, I actually pivoted. It was a pretty hard pivot too. The second pod, I think it was, if I remember correctly, at the end of the first pack, I still didn't know what hero I was. I literally drafted an entire pack, and I think I had all cards that were either generic or dual class, or like maybe 1 or 2 of each class. And I literally decided my hero in pack 2 based off of which hero if I picked a hero, if it had the least amount of dead cards after picking that hero, which ended up being Syndra.
That's crazy.
I was getting some really weird signals, and I think it was because the people next to me were staying really open early, and then took a couple class cards and basically sent some really odd signals my way, and so I couldn't find out what hero was supposed to be for my seat. And then I ended up technically picking wrong. I picked Syndra, and the person directly to my right was also Syndra. But they did pick a lot of generic cards early, so I got a couple power cards for Syndra, and then the cards that they were looking for in pack 3 were a bit different than what I was looking for in pack 3, so I was able to get some good stuff despite them being directly to my right taking Syndra cards. And I guess I forgot to mention, the first pod I 3-0'd, and then the second pod I 2-1'd with Syndra, losing only to the person to my right that was also Syndra in the mirror match. And then top 8, I was drafting Arachne for I believe the first 6 picks, maybe 5 or 6 picks. And then pick 7, I see a Tooth of the Dragon, which is a very strong Fang card in draft. I don't know how much draft you played, but very strong Fang card in draft. And Arachne was getting pretty dry at that point too. Even though I had some strong Arachne cards, there wasn't much in there to pick for Arachne anyway, so I picked the Tooth of the Dragon. I was like, okay, I'm going to pick this card. Maybe I'm supposed to be Fang at this point if someone's passing Tooth of the Dragon all the way to me in pick 7 of this first pack. And sure enough, in the following packs, there just kept being strong warrior cards. So I just kind of kept picking strong warrior cards. And turns out that I definitely picked correctly. I think I could have been Assassin, but I was in a really good seat for Fang because there was one Fang directly to my left, but then the other Fang was all the way across the table. And so I was getting a ton of really good picks. And the Fang across the table was also not picking a ton of the Draconic reacts, so I got a lot of the good Draconic reacts in there.
Oh, that's interesting. They were doing like a front buff kind of thing?
Yeah, they had like all the front buffs. They had like a decent number of the dual class cards, stuff like that. So I was able to get a lot of the power cards, even on the third pack. And it was funny though, because my deck, I had all equipment too, which helped a lot. I had all 4 pieces of equipment, but I had 8 dead cards in my sideboard. They were all literally assassin cards I could not play. So I had exactly 30 playables. I did not have a sideboard at all with my Fang deck. And I thought, at first I was like, oh, this deck's terrible. I hope I get my first win and then I don't care after that. But it ended up 3-0ing. I was really surprised, and turns out it was actually a pretty good deck after I played with it. It felt actually a lot better than my initial thoughts on it were. But yeah, I if you want to see the gold foil opening for it, Anarchy Please on YouTube has a winner's interview of that event, and I opened the gold foil on stream. But I will also really quickly grab it because I realized I meant to have this available. I'm gonna grab it really quickly and show the stream. Because it's like right here in my backpack. Okay, I don't know. Have you actually seen? Do you know what my gold foil is, Jacob?
I actually haven't seen.
Yeah, I was about to say I don't think you actually know what it is yet. So this is gonna be revealed for you too. Are you ready? Drum roll.
Oh, my mic's not picking it up.
Iron gauntlets.
Fantastic.
Not a particularly great gauntlets, considering they just got power crept by the Blade Beckoner gauntlets. So I don't.
Well, you'll have to find a deck to put them in.
Yeah, maybe in the future. Maybe in the future it'll be worthwhile for some reason. But currently there's literally no reason to run this over the new rare gloves in the Hunted. So we'll see. Do you know which ones I'm talking about?
Oh, is it the one that like blocks on like the?
It's if it blocks a weapon, it gets +1 and it's guard well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah. So you block a regular break point, and then you can block a weapon.
Yeah, or you can just block a weapon for 2. So it's like you can block a weapon for 2 for free, or you can run this and pay a resource to block anything for 2.
Just wait until Icelander 2, and she might be able to run it because she'll pitch a blue.
Even then, does she want to run that over Blade Beckoner? Like, probably not. But anyway,
I mean, depending, but
it's fine. It's fine. I opened a pretty good gold foil last time that I opened a gold foil, so I was due for a mediocre one, if not one of the worst ones.
Hey, it's still a gold foil.
Yeah, it's still gold foil. Yeah, it's still fun to open. So I'll hold on to this because I don't think it's worth anything. I'll just hold on to it. It'll be a cool little reminder that I took down that event. And yeah. Oh, and then I also got the Arachne Redback playmat, because when you win one of these, you get it's one of 7, I believe, playmats. So I got that, and then yeah, that's about it for my RTN report. I'm not sure if there's anything else I'm forgetting to mention there. But
one thing I wanted to ask is, like, now that you've gotten a lot more like testing and like results, are there any bombs in the set? Really?
Oh yeah. There's definitely some bombs, and they're pretty obvious ones too. When it comes to like once you play a couple of games, if you play into it, you'll notice like Savor Bloodshed. That's disgusting when people play it into you. It's such a big bomb, because I played against an Arachne that when in practicing online, I played against an Arachne that had, I think it was a 3-card 15 because of it on their first turn.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Because you just can't block. You can't block their stuff. If you don't have a D react, you're not going to be able to block all of their stuff. It's just not really feasible. So yeah, so they did 3-card 15 against me, and it was just over on the spot. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that's a big bomb in the set, but it's definitely much better than the previous sets when it comes to bombs.
That's good at least.
I pulled Take Up the Mantle in my first pod. That was pretty good. Being able to get +3 and swap out my stealth card with like Mark of the Black Widow, or I actually won a game because I was able to swap out. I pitched it for late game, and then late game I was able to play one of the blue stealth cards and then swap it out for a red plunge, which is for 5 when they're marked. Arachne. So I was able to basically effectively do +3 plus 5, and it was for 1, so it was like +7 with 1 card, effectively.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So that it's not a bomb, I would say, but it is very strong. And then I can't really think of anything else, but there definitely are some like very strong cards in the set.
That's okay. Yeah. I'm glad to at least hear it's like, from what I can tell, not Morale Guy level, not Terminate level.
I would say
crazy like that.
Savor Bloodshed is like creeping up on like Chase the Tail levels, if not maybe a Chase the Tail level bomb. But it's not like.
And which one?
Savor Bloodshed is the one where your next dagger attack gets +4, and then the next time you hit a marked hero this turn, you get to draw a card.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So yeah, you get to give it's already good enough on its own, a 1 card +4 on your next attack. I think it's next dagger attack. but then you also get to draw a card, so it's potentially a 1-card 7, which is pretty good. Kind of like the Take Up the Mantle at like the peak of Take Up the Mantle value. So, yeah, very strong card, but still like Chase the Tail was a 1 for 7, so it's like kind of the same as Chase the Tail, right? In a sense. So, but
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, not too many big bombs. Mostly like your deck archetype and the quality of all the rest of the cards in your deck matter a lot more than having these strong bombs, which is really good for draft. It's very nice, and I'm excited to be drafting this set for London because I think it's a very good set, a very good draft set. So yeah, but yeah, enough about me. So let's hear a little bit about your RTN. You brought Jarl, right?
Yeah, I brought Jarl. Like, obviously I didn't win, as we went over. No Jarl won, but
Yeah.
I am excited to play him, and I didn't get nearly as much practice as I would have hoped going into this like event, and that's all on myself. I can't say it's like, oh, I was too busy or whatever. I was too lazy.
Yeah.
But going into this event, I didn't have as much practice as I really would have wanted. But I was like, okay, well, we'll sit down. At least if like I can't perform well, I can get the practice that I want and like just talk it out with my opponents when like, okay, what do you think? What is this? And there was a couple changes that I made like pretty late into this week to my deck, like Seeds of Tomorrow. I was like testing that and I was like super impressed with that. So I put Seeds of Tomorrow into my deck and then later, like 2 days later, they win, or the Jarl wins, and apparently very heavily based off Seeds of Tomorrow.
Oh, the Michael Hamilton Jarl, I mean? Yeah.
No, was it Michael Hamilton Jarl? It was like who won the Battle Hardened? The guy in Barcelona. They were running Seeds of Tomorrow.
Oh, I thought you were saying that. I misunderstood earlier. I thought you said Hamilton was the one that won that. I misunderstood that. Okay, so another Jarl won. I see.
Yeah, another Jarl won.
So they were on Seeds of Tomorrow, though.
Yeah, and sorry, like my brain just
you're good.
jumped around. And if you don't know what Seeds of Tomorrow is, it's the Earth card that came out in Rosetta, which says put your arsenal card and bomb your deck, prevent the next 5 damage. And it's like super strong against like the dagger flicks, but also assassin because like they present something you can't like really block. You just put your arsenal down.
Right, because
and it like changes how you.
Because it's like well, I was gonna ask. So it's like Shelter the Storm and like what's that blue D react when they draw 2 cards? If they draw 2 cards, it prevents the next 3. Hold the line.
Hold the line.
It's like those ones, right? Where it's not one source of 5 damage. It's just the next 5 damage you would take. Right.
Yeah. So it's like
So it hits all those breakpoints.
And it helps like cover up a lot of the turn. Like there's definitely turns when I'm facing against a ninja where it's like I put it down and it's like, oh, like they're throwing a 5 attack. I'll block with a 3 card. Oh, it's a 3 card. I'll block with a 3 card. Oh, dagger gets covered. And it's like really cool and impressive. And like especially against assassin too, where they're like, oh, I'm gonna pump this all the way up to whatever. Like if it hits, it does this. It's like, oh, if it hits, you lose your arsenal or whatever. Like I can sync the card. It like sync the arsenal 1, 2, if like 1 if that's the on hit, but like 2, it also like, oh, like on hit, take a card from your hand, and then it's like a 2-card 8 block at that point where it's like I put my arsenal down.
Yeah,
it's like you have to play a little bit different and play around like having the arsenal more. But it's like super impressive on how you can block and work around it. But anyways, jumping right back into it. Well, like I was going into this event.
So I just want to ask really quick, like, so for your list, you're not on a CYB list, right? You're on like a more generic, like is it Earth focused or Ice focused or what kind of list?
Mine is like a heavy ice disruption kind of focus.
Cool. Like so you brought
and it's
that
like
list.
I know that there's and it's like I think Zephin got like 9th or 10th place on a similar list. Okay. Not the exact same, but on a very similar list at RTN. But losing event. So I go and sit down at this event. I hear that like how many of like I'm like I just don't want to see any like Kanos and I don't want to see any
Probably Viserai, right?
Viserai is pretty bad too. I'm like, I want to see Kano, Viserai, or Enigma. I'm like, we'll see how bad this is. So I'm like sitting down and I hear the results for the day, and I'm like, oh sweet, I think there's only now I'm looking
it's
for
just one
I can't
Kano,
find.
right?
There was one Kano and I think 2 Enigmas,
Yeah.
and only I don't know exactly how many Viserai.
Four Viserais, I believe, because it was the most was 5 Syndras, and I think you said
3 Viserai.
Oh, was it 3 Viserai? Okay, 3 Viserai.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
so out of what 44 players, it was 6 bad matchups. Well, 6 guaranteed bad matchups.
I'm like, and even then, I was like, okay, like this is actually looking like an amazing field for me to at least try and test things out. And we get paired in the first round, and I'm sitting down, I'm getting ready. I'm like, sweet, this is awesome. Let's see how this goes.
Yeah.
And then person in front of me sits down. I'm like, oh, who are you running? And they're like, oh, I'm on Kano. So I run 1 AB.
Yeah,
so I sat down. I'm like,
rough.
okay. It was still a very good match, and like this is like another place where Seeds of Tomorrow like impressed me because I had Seeds of Tomorrow, and I drew it on their combo turn. Well, I didn't draw. I drew it a couple turns, and I kind of like sandbagged it as best I could. And then on their combo turn, they either wildfired me, and I prevented. I think they had the gem. No, they had a Kindle, so they either wildfired me for 7, and I prevented 6 of it.
Dang.
So that was sick, but still at that point, I think it was like turn 3 or 4, and I was at 8 life. So it was
yeah, so
not that it had to hit for a lot.
Yeah.
so I still died there, but I was really impressed. But I definitely went in like going into this event. I'm like, there's not a lot of Kanos in this area. I don't need to prep for Kano at all. Like, don't need to try anything. I won't do anything different, and got punished for it.
The classic Kano cycle, right? Of it's not a deck, and then it is a deck, and then you actually have to run AB, so then it's not a deck anymore. Yeah.
It's like I feel like we're like on the crisp of it not being a deck right now.
Yeah.
Like especially after it doing so well.
Right next to where it needs to be, like right at the point where you're really heavily deciding whether or not to run 3 AB.
Yeah. I think I was just one step behind, and I got punished for it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, that's pretty rough.
But that was your first round, so...
it's first round. Like, okay, well, we'll get back into this. And then... I had notes, but I couldn't find where I put them. But then I go into my second round, and I think all the games I had were, like, really fun and really cool. Even if it was, like, that Kano matchup, there's still a lot of really cool interaction, like I said, with Seeds of Tomorrow. And... Oh, yeah, and then, like, I was able to turn 0, put down the Crumble to Eternity, which puts a -1 on their boots. So it was, like, on their... I forced them to combo off, because I think they wanted to combo, like, turn 5 or whatever it was, and I forced them to combo turn 4, because I threatened destroying their boots. So they comboed off early, and still got me, but it was something like, that's the idea, if you want to try and steal their boots. Yeah, so it was like still a really engaging match for how little I was prepared.
Yeah.
But then I sit down in my next matchup, and I think my next matchup was a Prism. And like, okay, I haven't honestly tested into Prism at all with Jarl. But with like my theory and everything, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty good into this. And I also run the Glacial Footsteps blue, which is the 8.
Yeah.
So I'm like, not a lot of Jarls are running that one right now, but I'm like, I'm even extra teched into Prism because I had a feeling that, yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm extra teched into Prism just because I personally thought Prism was gonna do pretty good this week. So I like, and she ended up doing really well. I sit down in this Prism, and like, not only am I like extra teched, but like my deck just really wanted to work that round.
Nice.
Like, do you ever have it where you're like,
yep. I know what you mean.
The synergy's just all working, like, oh, the Natty Oaken Old, perfect. Oh, a second Natty Oaken Old. Oh, okay. Oh, Ice Quake and a Frostfang, and I just destroyed their equipment next turn. Okay. Like, it was like turn after turn just like worked out. And then like it did slow down a little bit in the mid game, but like I had gained so much advantage, and I had those poppers. So like the mid game I could like, okay, well, I'll just block with my ice or like my Glacial Footsteps, which is the like blue 8 blocks 3. But I'm like, I'll block with that. Pop. And I'll just block or hit your Spectre with my hammer. So not only was I like tacked into it thinking it was going to be a good deck, but I also think Jarl's already a good matchup into it.
Yeah.
But like my deck just wanted to work. So I was like, okay, there's still a fun game. There's a lot of fun interactions. Like but I definitely felt like at some points where I'm like, oh man, like I feel bad. My deck's just working 100% of the time.
Don't feel bad. You're playing against Prism.
Yeah. It's an illusionist. It's an illusionist. I shouldn't feel bad. So I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. I'm feeling fantastic.
Yeah.
And I go to sit down in my next match, and I think it's a Florian. And I just fell behind so early. And it was like, I took too much damage early without being able to destroy their equipment. But I was still pretty happy with myself because I had pitch stacked so well. Because that one,
Nice.
well, I pitch stacked really well, and I was happy about that. But it was like, at the point where I was at 1 life and they were at 13 life on Florian. I'm like, I might just be losing here.
Right.
But it ended up going another like 10 turns, and because of my pitch stack, I got them down to 5 life to my 1 life. So I like clawed back pretty well, but then I was out of gas and they got me.
Quick question.
They played it.
Do they have
Yeah.
any? Do the Florian decks run any way to deal 2 arcane, like that one card that Chains used to run to deal 2 arcane, or like Rosetta Thorn style, you know?
They were running the tree, so the Millennium tree.
Yeah.
So there was one turn where I almost, and this again where Seeds of Tomorrow came in. I was at
Nice.
1 life. They put tree down, they grasped, and they threw their sword at me. So it was like, they're like, I think I got you here. Like, there's no way you stop this. And that's where I was like my pit. And I think that's like where my pitch stack hit, because I was like planning for all this. So like Seeds of Tomorrow prevented the arcane on that. I also had Fruits of the Forest gain 2 life, and
Nice.
then I was able to like block out. Or I can't remember exactly how.
Yeah, you survived the tree though, which
I
is
blocked
good.
it, but I survived, and I think I survived with like higher life.
Yeah. That's funny.
And like, since they thought they were gonna kill me that turn, they didn't pitch like Earth cards, so the tree just like immediately went one way or another. So it was like I was able to survive, and then they had to take an off turn.
Yeah.
And because I survived that turn, my next hand was like a Oakenold I'd stacked. So it just like all like worked out, and that's how I stole momentum back for a little bit.
Nice.
That was a very good game, but they definitely like played way better than I did. Like from beginning to end. Like I think I did a good job pitch stacking, but I think generally they played a lot better than I did, so they took that there. Go into my next match, it was an Arachne Marionette. And completely sideboarded wrong. Like just
no.
wrong weapon, like, and it was like I didn't know. It was just I didn't have enough practice into this. And I was still like testing. It wasn't like me like, oh, I shoved cards in. Oh shoot, I didn't mean to put that. It was me like not really knowing the matchup still. I was like, and it's like it's different doing stuff in person. So it's like after the match, it's still a good game, and that's where I got bounced for 16 out of nowhere.
Oh no.
But after the match, I like talked to them. I'm like, so like, what do you recommend? Like, how would you go about approaching this? Do you think this card's good in this matchup? And that's where we discussed a lot. You're like changing around things, and like so much of my sideboard changed. Like my weapon, I think one of my equipment pieces, and like 6 sideboard cards changed after that match.
Dang, nice.
And I pair into another Arachne Marionette after that. And I get that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, and I got that one, and it was really cool because like I saw everything that we talked about and was able to like completely change my game plan and fix everything that I did wrong in that first Marionette game with sideboard and just like some minor play mistakes to be able to take the second one, and that was really cool and fun. And then I might be forgetting a matchup, but the last matchup we go in and I play in a Jarlmir, and it was a fantastic game. It was a CYB Jarl against me who was on an Ice Disruption Jarl.
Yeah.
And their deck was slower than mine, but they were able to get a pretty early start with like 3 CNCs in a row. and then they remembranced them back in the deck, which was like
Remembrance too. Ooh.
yeah. But so they remembranced them back in the deck, which I was like, okay, that's pretty brutal. But my deck, being a lot more disruptive and aggressive, was able to like steal a lot of momentum back from that part of the game. But
Nice.
it was a really good game, and it got to like pitch stack against each other. But unfortunately, they were one turn ahead on pitch stacking, and so they were able to tear asunder me at one point, stealing my hand and stole a lot of momentum.
Dang.
And I was one turn away from my defense reaction that I had ready,
Oh.
but it was literally the top because we get to that turn. I'm like, okay, I know I'm in my pitch stack. My next hand should have my defense reaction, and then I watch him put down, tear asunder into an attack. I can't remember if it was a hammer attack. Anyways, it was just too much, and I was like, I'm like, I bet it's the next card. It has to, I'm pretty sure it's this next card. I lose my hand, draw one card, see it's the defense reaction. Okay, yep, that makes sense. And then draw the rest of my hand. I'm like, it was one off. But it was an amazing game, and it went down to fatigue, where it was like, I think I had no cards in deck, and they had like one card in deck or two cards in deck, and they ended up stealing it from there. And it was
difference.
fantastic, though. Yeah, big difference.
Yeah.
But it was a fantastic game. Very
awesome.
well played. Yeah, it was a really fun RTN. A lot of really cool things. I'm really impressed with my pitch stacking in a lot of places where I was like, okay, this isn't gonna work out here. I siege tomorrow down like the Oakenold that was in my arsenal, and I'm like, oh, I siege that down. I need to make sure I pitch exactly this way, so when we get to second cycle, I have the Natty Oakenold. Like, I just don't have to work towards it.
Yeah.
So it was just like cool stuff like that. It was a really good day, but again, I didn't do too well. I went 2-4, but I think I gained a lot just from being there and practicing.
Yeah, because that was your first like competitive event since probably what? Did you play any of the ProQuests last ProQuest season?
I did, but that was the last like competitive event I participated in.
Yeah, and that was a while ago. That was like November, October, something like that. But anyway, yeah, so a long
time ago.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I love going to like the local qualifiers. I think it's a ton of fun. The community here is obviously phenomenal, and then it's just a really good way to get like your competitive juices flowing, right? To get those actual like really nitty gritty competitive games in there. And I'm actually I'm kind of sad. I'm not playing any more RTNs, not only because I have my invite, but because I don't want to take any invites from anybody else. I heard some other people were doing that here, and I thought that was a really like what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's like a good thing to do for the community, right? It's like not try to take invites away from the other people that are here, because obviously I want to see more Colorado people at at nationals, but I do wish I could go. I've contemplated going and playing, and then just conceding in top 8, just like in play, just because it's so fun just to go out and play these competitive events. But I don't know. It'll be hard to justify forking over some money just to play and concede in top 8.
Yeah, that's fair. I know a lot of people are asking where you were and missing you. So,
and it seemed like it was like there's a huge turnout there too, which was really cool. So yeah, I was sad I didn't make it, but it was good to be home and get some chores done that day.
That's fair.
Yeah, my wife definitely appreciated it too. So not just going out and playing all day. But anyway, if there's nothing else, we could tie it up. But do you have anything else you wanted to say on the podcast?
No, I think that's just about it.
All right, I guess I want to pose a question to the audience. Leave in the comments below here on YouTube, or if you're listening on Spotify. I believe there's a way to leave comments too. I thought there was a way to enable that, and I think I enabled it. But if not, let me know. And I want to ask, what are your thoughts? What are your predictions for high seas? Do you think we'll get a pirate class / talent? Do you think we'll get a ranger? Do you think we'll get a mechanologist? Throw out your wildest theories of the high seas. Yeah, that's my question for the audience. I also want thanks again for all the support. You guys are what make us enjoy, or no, I'm stumbling my words here, but here's what would make us continue to move forward making these podcasts and really give us the motivation to continue doing this. So we really appreciate it.
Yeah, it means a lot to like have so much support, especially just initially when we're like, hey, let's just give this a shot, try this out, and there's already like so much support, so many comments, like it's crazy.
Yeah, it was just a flood of support, way more than we expected. I was actually telling Jacob after we recorded the last episode, like, let's just not keep our expectations too high. Like, we have to be okay with getting 2 or 3 viewers, you know, and that's about it. Like, we just got to keep putting our head down and making the podcast, and eventually if we continue to enjoy it and we really put effort into it, then everyone will come and join. But we've already gotten such a good response on the first episode that it was really refreshing to see that, and it was we were very happy with it. That's for sure. But yeah. So then, yeah, without further ado, thank you for being here. We really appreciate you. And until next time.